Hello again. This is Pastor Rick Bachman from the First United Church of Christ, coming in with a serious situation around us. The president has given us updates on what the projected deaths of this virus may be, and to be honest with you, it's daunting, scary in fact. We are looking at numbers that frankly we have not seen in many of our lifetimes. So it is that with the isolation, with the fear, and with all the anxiety going around, many of you, like me, may be struggling to maintain happiness. And so it is today my message is the happiness choice, which seems like an odd title because I don't know anybody that would choose to be unhappy. But the reality is we sometimes do without realizing it. The scripture I'm reading today is from both Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 through 12, and then Psalm 16, 5 through 9. I'm reading from the English Standard Version. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. What you have learned and received and heard, seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. I rejoiced in the Lord greatly, now at length, and have received your concern for me. You were indeed concerned for me, but you had no opportunity. Not that I was being need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to be abound. In every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger and abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Psalm 16, verses 5 through 9 read, The Lord is my chosen portion and my cup. You hold my lot. The lines have fallen for me in pleasant places indeed. I have a beautiful inheritance. I bless the Lord who gives counsel. In the night also my heart instructs me. I've set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand. I shall not be shaken. Therefore my heart is glad, and my whole being rejoices. My flesh also dwells secure. For you will not abound my soul in Sheol, or let your Holy One see corruption. You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is a fullness of joy, and your right hands are pleasures forevermore. To be honest with you, when a young man, wanted happiness more than anything. And I'll be honest with you, the majority of my early life was not happy. It was a life spent seeking it. And like me, many of you right now may be feeling that happiness is rather elusive. We live in a country where the Declaration of Independence guarantees us the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It almost sounds like it's a right, but it also sounds sometimes impossible to get. So how do I find happiness? Or does it even still exist? The truth of it is, like I said, I spent a long period of my life looking for happiness, only to discover that you cannot find happiness. You don't find it because it's not something that is there to be found. Happy people are not happy because they found happiness. They chose happiness. Now, when I say something like that, people generally stop and scoff. And they go, well, of course, everyone will choose happiness because the alternative is to be unhappy. And there is no one in their right mind who would choose to be unhappy. Well, the sad truth is, and maybe it's a statement of our minds, that most of us do choose to be unhappy. Most of us choose not to pursue happiness. There's a story of an old man that lived in a village, and the man was mean, angry. He was constantly belittling, insulting. He was not a happy man. And he went around and everyone avoided him because he was hard to be around. He was bitter. And he was a kind of a man that just literally no one wanted to be near. And I suspect the man himself didn't really like himself. But on his 80th birthday, suddenly something changed. And the rumor started to fly that the old man who was grumpy was smiling. And that he was actually greeting people. And he was being nice. And to be honest with you, most of the folks found that quite perplexing. How did this happen? What happened? What changed this old man? And so they went and asked him. And he says, for 80 years, I've pursued happiness and not able to find it. I've done everything I could to find happiness, and it eluded me at all options. He says, finally, on my 80th birthday, I decided to stop pursuing happiness and start pursuing living a life that was as full as it could be. Because I know I don't have much time left. He says, I just chose to enjoy the life that I have. And he says, amazingly, now I am happy. The old man is on to something, because while I constantly sought happiness, I can honestly say throughout most of my early life, it did not happen. It did not get to a point where I could even say I was seeing the light on the horizon. And the fact of the matter is, if I tell most folks that it's simply just a change of attitude, most of you will dismiss that as being too simplistic. You will say, hey, I just don't believe that happiness is just a matter of me changing my attitude. But the reality is, it is quite simply that. Your attitude will determine your happiness. You can rewire the way you think. You can decide to face life with joy or with depression. I'll be honest with you, I was the worst at this. I fought it. I denied it. I did not want to believe that I could just simply say my attitude needs to change and things will get better. And yet is exactly what did happen. Is that the minute my attitude started to change, I don't know how many of you work a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 or 7 to 5 work day, but many who do find themselves on Monday going, oh no, it is Monday again. And that depressing thought of it being Monday will destroy your whole Monday. And in fact, if you have something nice happen, it's only an accident because this is Monday and nothing good can happen on a Monday. And the truth of it is, we pre-wire ourselves to rob ourselves of happiness. If I stub my toe, it does hurt. I grant you. Nobody likes stubbing their toe. And I can tell myself and say, oh my goodness, how terrible it is. I've stubbed my toe and now I'm in pain. Oh my, oh me, how terrible this day. Or I can stop, let the pain subside, get back up and realize I'm still able to walk. That's a miracle. I'm still able to maneuver. That's a wonderful thing that many are not happy with. I can do things and I can still live a joy-filled life. I have to stop putting the focus on the negative and refocus on the positive. And I can also tell you, this does not come naturally. It does not come easily. I was a man who was cynical, critical. I used to joke, as you've all heard Murphy's Law, that anything that can go wrong has gone wrong. And back in my law enforcement day, they called me Baki, short for Bachman. And I had Baki's Law. And Baki's Law was Murphy was an optimist. Anything that can go wrong already has. I just don't know it yet. Now, the truth of it is that cynical, negative attitude was robbing me of happiness. And I will tell you, it does not change unless you say, I do not want to stay that way anymore. It has to be an attitude of saying, I no longer accept focusing on negative only. For today, I can tell you the folks that watch too many hours of the news and getting depressed because of the news cycles, you need to stop listening to the news 10 hours a day. It's not healthy. It's not good for you. Get away. Go out. Today is a sunshiny day. Take a walk around the house. Look at the joy and the greatness of God's creation. Thank Him for the fact that you are still alive, that you still have your health. Refocus that negative attitude into something else. The second step in happiness is getting your mind off you. Unhappy people spend the majority of their lives focusing on poor me. Oh, how mad I got it. Nobody else knows, how's that old song go? Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. We all have a little bit of that inside of us. We focus only on our own pain, on our own limitations, and when we do that, we find, unfortunately, more misery to be gone. The more we focus, the more we find. And the truth of it is, if you want to get rid of that misery, take your focus off you and put it onto someone else. There's a wonderful story about a very rich woman who went to a psychiatrist. She was depressed. She literally was feeling like she had no reason to live. And she just was struggling with being so sad. And the psychiatrist had had several sessions with her, and it wasn't being very successful. And finally, one day, out of desperation, the psychiatrist called the cleaning lady in, which seemed quite odd. And she said, asked the cleaning lady, would you please share your story with this lady? And she said, certainly. She says, a few years back, she says, I lost my husband. Within a few short months, I lost my son. She says, I went into a deep depression. I literally desired to do nothing but die. Happiness was gone. I could see no hope to ever smile again. And frankly, I was at the point of giving up because I could see no way out of this downward spiral that I'd found myself in. And my life was truly miserable because of everything that had happened to me in the last 12 months. She says, and then one day, on a cold, rainy day, a little kitten followed her home. And feeling a little empathy for that kitten, she let it inside to get warm, give it some milk to get its belly because it hadn't been fed in long time. And as the kit finished lapping up the milk and warming up, the kitten came up against her leg and scuffed up and started to purr. And the woman says, you know, for the first time since all the losses that I'd had, I smiled. And then she says, I realized something very unique. That if helping this poor little kitten could bring a smile to my face, what would it be if I helped others that were suffering? So she went to bed, got up the next day, and she started baking cookies and all this other stuff. And she says, I found people all around the town that I knew were in need, that were sick, that were having struggles. And she says, I went around giving these things to those folks. And she says, I've spent the rest of my life doing just that. looking for people who are hurting, looking for people who are in need, and seeing if I can in some way help them. And she says, I want to tell you something. I now sleep better than anyone in the world. I have more peace and more happiness than I ever had in my entire life, even before all my losses. She says, I have joy and happiness that I didn't know was possible because I now focus on other people's needs, other people's losses. I think this story illustrates a wonderful truth to us. Happiness comes from giving to others. It doesn't have to be cookies. It can be a kind word to a checkout lady. It can be a smile and a wave on a roadway. It can be just doing what we can to ease someone else's burdens. We can get happiness from giving. We can take the burdens of others, and by taking their burdens, we lighten our own burden. An amazing truth that doesn't seem logical, but it works. Trust me, it does work. I can remember one day I reached the nursing homes back when we could, and I was in a nursing home one day, and my schedule was quite full because I was doing preaching and I was also doing a full-time job, and I was doing all these things, and I was tired. I was battling extreme pain. I was eating a lot of painkillers just to get through because of everything I was trying to do. And I'll bet if I was honest with everybody, going into that nursing home that day, I was probably doing a pity me party. You know, I'm hurting, I'm busy, I just, I really don't feel like doing this. And after the sermon, I was talking to a lady, wheelchair bound. She was taking the last steps of her life. She's blind. She can hardly hear. Literally can hardly feed herself. And she desperately would desire to do any of the ministry I was doing. And it suddenly focused on me that my pain, my schedule, was not nearly as severe as I thought it was. It wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it could be. The truth of the matter is, friends, if you want to be happy, it's a choice. Yeah, it's a tough choice. And yeah, you're going to have to swallow that little pride thing that says, no, it is not that simple. You don't understand. My pain, my angst, my anxiety is more severe. I can't just have a different change of attitude and it'll go away. But I'm here to tell you that if you focus on the positive more than the negative, if you focus on others more than you focus on yourself, you will experience happiness unlike anything you ever could imagine. Happiness is a choice. Happiness is a lifestyle that you will choose or you will reject. Now, I'll be honest with you, folks. Nobody out there will tell me honestly to my face, I don't want happiness and I reject it with everything I've got. We all desire to be happy. We all desire to see and be happy people. Let's do the things that it causes us to put our attitudes in a positive way. Let us choose to serve others. And finally, I have to share a story that has brought me a great deal of happiness. This story didn't originate from, but it was a story that was shared by a young man who's taught me a lot about life. He's a young man named Daniel Feltz. He's a special needs man, a young man who's grown up through struggles that I can't imagine, dealing with pain that I can't even comprehend. But his attitude has always been one of humor and sharing love for others. He is probably one of the happiest people I know. And he shared this story with me, and I want to share it with you because, let's face it, it brought joy to my heart. I hope it brings joy to yours. And in sharing it, I think we do a little bit of honoring Daniel and people like him who want to bring joy to other people. But the story is that there was a cat that went to heaven, and he got to the gate and he says, I've been a barn cat all my life, out in the weather. It's been tough. He says, I would just truly love to have a nice warm spot in the sunshine where I could sit, purr all day, and just be comfortable and just relaxed and enjoy life. And St. Peter said, you bet. We got you a little plot over here, and the sunshine shines on it all the time. You go and you sit and you rest, for you've had a rough life, cat. Well, a few days later, 3 mice came up, and they were the proverbial 3 blind mice. We've had a tough life. Between the housewives and the cats and everything else, we have literally struggled all our lives, and we've had troubles. And to be honest, if we had a wish, we would love to be able to just roller skate around, happy and joyful, and just... St. Peter says, I think it's a wonderful idea. The mice got roller skates. So St. Peter's strolling around a few weeks later and seeing how things go, and he come by the cat. He says, how is it going? Cat says, it's wonderful. The sun shines all the time. This bed is so comfortable. He says, I'm just so content here. It's wonderful. And he says, and it's just amazing. Those Meals on Wheels that keep coming by are delicious. Now, I hope that brings a little humor to your life. I hope it just brightens your day. We are in troubled times. We have bad news to come. We are not through this yet. But trust God. He will carry us through. We will come through this. We will find an outside to this virus. And if you're lucky and you're willing, you can choose happiness over sadness. And trust me, that makes a difference in the rest of your life. Thank you. Have a God-blessed day.